What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. My name is Adam. I am your host. We are bringing on a very special guest, someone that you have probably seen come into the hobby very quickly. He is the person who just bought the Mickey Mantle 1952 PSA 9 for $5.2 million. We have Rob G. How we doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super cool for you to come on the podcast. I'm very excited to ask you a bunch of questions about the card and kind of how everything went. So I guess we'll start out here. So I do want to give you a compliment to kind of start the podcast out here. It's a compliment and a question, I guess, because so with these high value cards, putting your name, kind of almost linking it with that card, I think is definitely something that I think is very smart. And it's something that actually Vegas Dave kind of did with the Mike Trout card that recently sold. And, you were on so many different media outlets and different articles were written about you and the card. So like when you were going into buying this card, like I can't imagine if we can even really quantify like the impressions and how much you actually got of media coverage. So like, was that something that you were thinking about when you were buying the card?
I mean, I'm a business guy, so of course, I look at the card as a business. So, you definitely want to grow the value of any asset that you buy, a business or a card. But, it's not the main reason I bought the card. Obviously, I thought it was way undervalued. I thought it was the most iconic card and I thought it was a piece of art. But, you definitely want to get your value in things and make sure that you maximize every opportunity. So yeah, it was a well planned out execution of the go-to-market strategy. But I didn't buy the card for media by any means. It's not like I was like, oh, let's do a marketing play. That wasn't why I bought the card. Not at all.
Very cool. Yeah. And I think you mentioned something, the card being underpriced. And I think the Trout card it basically sold around the same time. I think Evan Mathis was the one that had a PSA 9 that sold it in 2018 for 2.8. So the Trout card went from 400,000 to 4 million or 3.9 million. The Mantle only went from 2.9 to 5.2. So was that something that kind of you were thinking about? Like how exactly were you pricing the card out and thinking of it that way? Or kind of how did you think about buying it when you were going to buy it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you look at, Jordan was high teens. And then at the time, I think it was like 250 or 200,000 or something. You had, obviously Wayne Gretzky went for over $1 million, and before that, it was a lot less. You had Jackie Robinson went from 50,000 to 400,000 in a year. LeBron James, 1,000 to, 30,000. At the time, it was probably like 27. So, a lot of these cards, 10X, 20X, whereas this card, which is more iconic than all those, and it only, at my valuation, a little bit less than doubled. So I thought it was way undervalued and had a lot more room to grow. And if you looked at, this card, it's consistently sold for high numbers for, years and years, but it hasn't really popped. It kind of stayed consistent around the same price, some bumps, some dips. And so that's where, I definitely thought this card, still believe that it's undervalued.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I said, I think seeing the Trout card almost 10X and that this card really only 2 or 3X relatively, I think, I agree when you're saying that it's undervalued, I definitely agree with that. And you're always seeing like lower numbered cards, or not always, but there are lower numbered Mantles that sell on eBay. So, this isn't the type of card that you can just buy off of eBay. So I'm definitely interested to hear like what the process was like when you think that you want the card, and how did you go from thinking you wanted the card to actually buying it?
So I have a lot of dealers and a lot of just people out searching for rare card for me. And PWCC, that, one of the guys I was dealing with is Jesse. And so he messaged me one night. I was in bed and he just said, hey, we've got this card in the vault. It's obviously very rare, that. And these guys that own these things never sell. But we do have it in the vault. So, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so I said, let's go for it. Let's see if they would be willing to sell. So that's what happened. And, it was a couple days only, back and forth as far as the price goes. Of course, the seller wants more than once more. And then of course the buyer wants less, and then you kind of settle on, your negotiations. And it took a couple of days. I wasn't sure. There weren't a lot of comps, so I wasn't really sure, how, what the other cards would do, or, all that kind of stuff. So, we settled on the 5.2 million, and then, I wired the cash and got the card.
That's awesome. So did the card show up in the armored vehicle, or did you send it out in the armored vehicle?
It's both. It's a great service, white glove service. And so both, and anytime you want to ship things to you, you use the same kind of thing. And anytime you want to ship things out, you use the same kind of service. It's not that expensive, to be honest. It's, like $6,000 or something.
Yeah. I mean, for something that's worth $5.2 million, I'd say the $6,000 was probably worth the cost to make sure it's safe.
Yeah. And that way, let's say I'm flying, I'm not going to fly with that kind of exposure, so it's just a lot safer. It makes so much more sense. You don't have to worry about it. It's just a cleaner situation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I've heard you on some of the other podcasts kind of talk about this card being like modern art. And, Jay-Z has talked about buying a Basquiat painting for $4.5 million. Like, do you think that these types of cards, so like vintage and older cards, get to kind of that mainstream level where, maybe it's not Jay-Z rapping about it, but maybe it's like Leonardo DiCaprio talking about it or something along those lines? Like, cause I think that, I have a graphic design background, and graphic design is sort of where it was one of the reasons why I got back into sports cards, because every sports card has a design. And so my kind of initial coming back in was kind of just talking about the design. So, I'm definitely a believer that these cards are going to become like modern pieces of art. I think that's definitely a play. So I'm interested to see like what you think, if these types of cards will become more mainstream in the future as like more modern art pieces.
100%. I mean, this is a piece of art. It's a new diversified asset class. It's been around for a long time. Obviously, we know it's beat the S&P 500 historically, but these kind of cards, you have athletes and celebrities coming into the market on a daily basis. I've had 4 different athlete friends that have reached out, asking how they can spend massive amounts of money. And that's how it started with me. I started going, okay, I'm going to spend $100,000. Then it jumped to 250. Then it jumped to 500. Then I was in it for millions, and then I bought this card. So, I think once you get into the hobby, you like it. And younger people, I think what happened in the past was you would buy a Basquiat, or you'd buy a Warhol, or a whatever, and then you put on your wall. Now you have young money coming in, a lot of athletes, a lot of young guys, tech money, whatever, nobody cares about, they do. I mean, listen, I collect art, but I think people are going to start showing off their cards probably more than they are their art, so I think the cards are definitely the new rare modern art, 100%.
Yeah. And I think even with so few of them, like, I think that's maybe also the reasons why, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, the Topps 2020 project, or Topps Project 2020, was a product that I was interested in right off the get-go, because it was artists that I even knew, because like Tyson Beck is a sports designer who I knew who was in it, and then there was a couple other designers. So, that set was one that I think took off because it had kind of an artistic piece to it. Like, you can't really buy pieces of or Ben Baller is another example. You can't just go out and buy something of Ben Baller's for like anything less than like a couple $1,000s. So like, if you can buy this card, that's something that I think, that's one reason why that set kind of took off. And I think people are sort of underestimating kind of there are a lot of naysayers within the market and within people outside of sports cards that say like that it's just a fad, or it's kind of just something that people are getting into now. Maybe they won't be interested in. But I think people are underestimating people like yourself who own businesses and kind of have a significant portion of money they're willing to invest. And I don't think we're really seeing that right now, but I think we're definitely seeing those types of people come into the market a little bit more. So is that kind of something that from your business perspective, or people, like you said, coming into the market that you've talked to, is that something that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, you look at let's the total population of active buyers in the hobby. I don't know what it used to be, but let's say it was 20,000. So now let's say it increases. It's on the news a lot. It's, celebrities posting it. It's friends of mine or whatever, you start buying. Now there's 2 million people. Well, there's only so much supply, basic economics. And so the prices will continue to rise. Personally, I know at least 20 guys that are new to the industry that have used over $1 million. So, and those guys aren't, I'm not a card flipper. I'm not a card dealer. I'm not buying to buy and flip and buy and sell. I'm buying because I'm collecting. And, those other guys are as well. So as more and more money is infused, and obviously there's more technology coming in, different businesses, and, funds are coming in. So I don't think funds are coming in for the short term and, to flip by, infuse the cash and then flip in the next year or two. So, I think it's going to continue to grow. You've had spikes in the industry in the past, 2016, but it's different than that because that never had the media coverage, never had the celebrity pickups. There was a few guys driving the market up, and now you've got, it's cards that you never thought of are going for record numbers. So it's a massive audience of new buyers. And I think it's going to continue to go. It is a diversified asset class. And if you talk to financial advisors, just like they're infusing money into other alternative assets, they're now considering this. So,
yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's kind of the point where vintage. I think vintage has this very interesting piece in the market because there's so little of it. Like for this mantle, like you bought one of there's only three. No, there's 6 PSA 9s and then there's 3 PSA 10s. So, if in theory, this is kind of why I've been talking about vintage a little bit more and saying that, or maybe not even necessarily vintage, but players like Kobe and Michael Jordan are going to be much better buys than maybe like a Luka or a Zion. Because, for example, like with the Jordan, I think there's only 310 or 317 PSA 10s where there's over 15,000 Lukas. So I think one thing that people are, again, underestimating is that like if 500 people come in to the, which I'm sure there's tons more, like, but if hypothetically 500 people come in and they all want a Michael Jordan PSA 10, there's only 300 of them. But if you have 20,000 people come in, there's 15,000 Lukas. So I think, that point that you made where people are coming in and they want vintage is definitely a good one. And another point that you actually made that I thought was really good too, that actually transitions perfectly is, the business side of sports cards itself. So in the past, maybe 2 years, we probably have seen more growth in the market, whether it's platforms or people, than we had maybe in the past decade. So, if someone's trying to start a business around sports cards, like what do you think? Do you have any advice for them that they're when they're trying to do that?
I would say obviously the market's hot for it. I just think that if you're greedy, you're going to push people out. You can make a quick buck. But just like with any business, if you do things the wrong way, you can of course scam people or make a quick dollar, but the longevity of it, you're not going to have it. So I just think if people are starting businesses, they need to do that the right way and not screw people, because not only does it screw their business, but it also makes people maybe new to the industry that don't know any better, to now have a bad experience, and they'll be gone as quickly as they got into the industry. So I think, I'm always an advocate of people starting a business and to grow. And I think anybody can be as rich as they want to be. I just think that people always need to do things the right way and treat people the way they'd want to be treated, and not think about the quick buck and think about the long term of both the hobby and themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a commentator in this hobby. I do a podcast. I've got YouTube. I do Instagram. And I think one of the things that is definitely important is making sure that, you are treating newer people that are coming in and you're kind of showing them, because I can even remember when I just was getting back in, I knew nothing. Like, I think there's a lot of people that are getting in that kind of are into maybe fantasy sports or sports betting, and they want to get into sports cards, but they don't exactly know where to start. And I remember what it was like for me to get back into it, and it was extremely confusing. So, I'm not sure if you're super familiar with fantasy sports or sports betting, but like, where do you see that those types of people may come into the market and play sports cards in a way that's similar to like sports gambling and like fantasy sports?
Yeah, if you're getting in to make money, of course it is gambling. You're opening packs, hoping to get a big pull. You're buying maybe Lucas, hoping that he has a great, a great game or a great career, whatever. So yeah, there's definitely gambling, and so I think they'll continue to come in for sure. And you love sports, and same with athletes. They love sports, so they know it better than anybody. They've got a lot of money that they can make a lot of money doing this and do well. I think a big part of it also is, you need people to have a good experience, right? Because again, that's good for the hobby and good for longevity of the business. I bought a ton of things on eBay. I got in August and bought tons of things, and nobody had a problem. I live in Puerto Rico. No one had a problem shipping. I bought a PSA 10 Jordan sticker, 1986 Fleer sticker from a guy named Timothy in Michigan. And, the guy was a complete jerk. If you're in Puerto, I couldn't pay because his settings were set to where you couldn't buy in Puerto Rico, or eBay allowed me to buy being in Puerto Rico, but for some reason when it didn't see that or something, so it let me buy, but it wouldn't let me pay until I switched it. And this guy wouldn't click a box to accept it. So I had to switch it to ship to my another house in Indianapolis. And then he canceled, knowing that the price was going to go up. And so that kind of shadiness, can cause you to get frustrated and to, kind of, I guess, not deflate your sales and not want to do business anymore. So I think doing those kind of things hurts the hobby, and just people need to understand that treat people how you want to be treated. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree there for sure. And how did you get into sports cards? Because I think it's always interesting I think everybody has like a little bit of a different story. So I'm interested to hear, like, did you collect as a kid and then you got back, or was it more like you kind of like, because for me, it was more Pokemon as a kid and then getting back into sports cards. I was playing like Madden or MLB The Show, I think, and I was flipping cards. And then I heard Gary Vee talk about card shows. And in my head, I was like, oh, so if I'm doing this on this virtual game, there's got to be a way to do this in real life. So that's kind of one of the other ways that I got back into it. So I'm interested to see, for you, how did you get back into cards?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I collected as a kid, loved it, got out of it. And then, yeah, I moved to Puerto Rico. I was, COVID, had some people reach out about, doing a Zoom call, a few guys. Gary was one of them there, Darian Gann. Dan invited me and just basically said, hey, we're buying cards. It's, you should buy cards. And so then I just, at first was a little hesitant because it was so, I didn't know this was the thing again. And then I just kind of tapped in, and just said, okay, I'll put $100,000 into it, and bought a diversified box from one of the guys in the group chats and in our text chat. And then, just kind of got addicted, thought it was fun to have all these cool cards, and to bring back memories of that. And also, I think they're so iconic as far as they're pieces of history. One of the cards was, an older 1948 Leaf card. And it's just nice. It's just cool to hold them and to think about how far those cards have come. So, then I got addicted, but that's how I got into it. Just a few guys, COVID, and and we jumped in a text chat, and just, it's the rest was history.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part where you said you got back into it and you bought a couple cards and you were instantly addicted. That's exactly what happened to me. Like getting back into it and just buying a couple cards and then getting them in your hands and being like, wow, this is like a piece of, like, I mean, for me, again, like I said, it was like, it's a piece of art that you're holding in your hand. And that's kind of one of the things that I really enjoy about sports cards. It's like, it's such a cool like piece. And especially for like people who are trying to invest, like you can have the card itself, and it's not just like you're investing your money, like you're actually getting the asset itself, which I think is another really cool thing.
And if you look at it, it's also very liquid. So again, I collect art. I've got, a lot of art, and if I want to sell that, what am I going to do? I've got to have Christie's come appraise it, send it to the air. It's a pain in the butt. with cards, if you want to be liquid, you just send it to eBay or send it to one of the eBay sellers or send it to, one of the auction houses and you've got cash within 7 days, 3 days, whatever the auction you want to do. So that's also so small. You can travel with it, you can ship it. Whereas, paintings, it's like, come on, I'm getting ready I just acquired a couple more pieces. I'm shipping them here. It's a pain,
Right.
So
yeah. So for you, like, what were some of the first cards that you were buying kind of when you got back into it?
I didn't know what I was doing initially. So, I think that happens a lot. You kind of just buy everything. And then, 6 months later, you realize what you want to buy. But, I bought the classics, Jordan rookies. So, I like the 10s, caught a couple 9s, Bird Magic rookie. I bought a Jordan, that 1984 star card, star 101, but I bought it because it's a PSA. There's only 9 PSA graded. I like that card. That was one of the beginning for me because I'm like, it's before his 1986 Fleer. There's only 9. I always looked at the pop reports for PSA. I didn't look at all 3, whatever combined. And so there's only 9, and they're still breaking boxes for 1986 Fleer, and so PSA is never going to grade this card again. So the pop report will never go higher. So I think that is the most rare Jordan card. So I bought that initially. Baseball. I've kind of just bought a bunch of different things. What else? Got a couple Nike Jordan cards. But, then I got into other things. Babe Ruth rookie, 1916 Sporting News, 1917 Collins McCarthy, the Joe Jackson. I just diversified. Joe Montana rookie, PSA 10. Just kind of got into my collection's great. I mean, it's just so much. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I heard so you're on the Slap Stocks podcast, and I heard you talk about that star Jordan. And when you said that you own one of the PSA 10 or the PSA, I think it was the 9 or 8 star Jordan. That's one where I was like, oh my, like, wow, like that's such a rare card because and it has so much history because it's just like PSA and BGS, I don't think they don't even grade that card anymore because it's so hard to tell the difference between a real and a fake one. That like a PSA, like you said, they only graded 9, which back in, I don't even know when they decided to stop grading it. So like think about like nowadays, like what that card would kind of be like if you were trying to grade it. It's like that's an iconic card, and I think one that I definitely think is actually a very interesting one because that one's older than the Fleer rookie card. But I think, the fact that PSA and BGS don't grade it anymore makes that Fleer one kind of probably more popular and easier to explain why it's the rookie. But like that star, I think is definitely, it's such a great card.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love the Fleer, obviously, but I think you're right. The reason why it is so accepted is because that's what there's more opportunity to buy. The star, PSA couldn't tell the difference between a real one or a not, a fake. So they stopped grading it. And I just think I like those cool, rare stories, and that's where this one, I've got a PSA 8. The only thing that's above it is a 9, but it's got a qualifier. So, the 8 is the cleanest, the highest pop, or the highest graded one. So yeah, I love that card. I think it's the most rare Jordan out there. That's so I bought that when I first got in at auction, and just again thought it was super undervalued. Just just cooler because there are 317 10s of the 1986 Fleer. There are, I don't know, 1,600 or something 9s. I'm not sure the pop on that one, but it's a lot, and so, and it's 1984, like you said, it's his real rookie year, which is dope.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And, I think you said that the cards, you like the stories behind them. So were there any cards that you bought that you remember as a kid? Because like there's one, so when I was in 2nd grade, I think I went to a Red Sox game with like my 2nd grade class for my birthday or something like that. And, it ended up being Derek Lowe is a pitcher for the Red Sox, and he threw a no-hitter, and we were at the game. So like I met him a couple times, and I had him sign like his Bowman rookie. And when I was first getting back into it, I bought one of the cards for like $5, and I was like, this is awesome. And it's like that's kind of it's kind of one of the fun things about sports cards that it's different for everybody. So like, were there any cards that you bought like when you were first getting back in that you had when you were younger, or was it kind of just like you were buying anything that you thought was kind of cool that had like a kind of a cool story behind it?
My mom sent me all my cards from as a kid. I haven't thrown those away. So, I have them. I've gone through them all. I'm going to send them into PSA, probably get them back 3 years later from them.
Right.
But no, I have them. So it was so cool to kind of go through that collection that as a kid, was so special to me, and that I thought thought it was amazing. So to see that, and also realize half that stuff is 99% of it's worth nothing.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just so cool to have it. I still have them. And, but yeah, I mean, I have been buying things, that I always wanted as a kid, and Mickey Mantle being one of them. And obviously the Jordan rookie, I never had that as a kid. Yeah, a lot of that stuff is super cool for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, one question that I usually ask all my guests on the podcast is, what's your dream card? But I think at this point, we probably realize that the Mickey Mantle is probably your dream card. It's the most expensive one, at least maybe that you have. So maybe I'll change the question a little bit. Like what's next for you in sports cards? Like, is this something that you're going to pursue any further? Or is it kind of something where now that you bought the Mantle, you're kind of like maxed out on sports cards? I mean, I know you said that you got back in and you're addicted to it. So it's like, it can be hard to stop buying them. But like, what's kind of, do you have any next steps? Like what are your plans for sports cards in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I buy every day, unfortunately. I just can't stop that. But, no, I love the hobby. I love the industry. So, I'm working on some different businesses within the hobby. And, so that's, I'm working on that, possibly a roll up with great entities and maybe, great pieces of content like yourself, and rolling them up into one big business to where it all cohesively works and benefits each other. So you got a good business you think I should look at? I would love to maybe see if they want to do a deal or like a piece of content, a show or something, So,
sure. Yeah. And so what's, I guess I could then kind of alter that question again. What's, other than this Mantle card, like what's a card that you bought recently that you've really enjoyed that you bought?
Oh man. What have I bought? I mean, every day. Dude, I just buy so many. I mean, I bought the SP Authentic Tom Brady. He's coming up in the Super Bowl. That was a good one. I bought a Dennis Johnson PSA 10. So that, you said you're from Boston, right?
Yes.
So that's a good one for you then. So, I don't know if you know who Dennis Johnson is, but his rookie was 1978, Boston Hall of Famer, legend. A lot of big guys have said, he's the best player they've played with. So I've got, I think, about every grade of him. I think he's a undervalued player, but that's something, since you're from Boston, I've recently bought. I don't know, just buying. I buy a lot, man.
Yeah. So I got one last question for you. So are you more into vintage, or have you bought really any modern stuff, or is it mainly like the Dennis Johnsons, the Michael Jordans? Like, is that kind of what you focus on, or kind of what cards do you like? Do you have a category that you kind of stick to?
Yeah, when I first got in, I bought modern. I've got, but just like Panini Prism, maybe silver, some base, the John Morants, the Zion Williamson, the Giannis, the Luka, whatever, that kind of stuff. Got a lot of Jason Tatum. He's a great guy. I've got him, but so I do play in that, but I'm mostly vintage, and I'm also diversified. I've got some soccer, some football, some basketball, some I just like random things, but mostly vintage. So.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. And I mean, I think vintage is, I think like we've been talking about, there's not much of it. So like it's much, I hate to say safe with investing in sports cards, but it's like, if you're comparing it to anything modern, it's like, it's so much more of a no brainer if you have the money for it to buy vintage than compared to like modern stuff.
I mean, look at Mike Trout, right? I mean, the guy is a future Hall of Famer. He's crushing it. Incredible stats. You know, his rookie, the Bowman, you know, those things, they have so many different versions. You got the orange refractor, you got the normal refractor, you got the normal, whatever. And there's so many of them. They're going for amazing prices. Like, good, you know, that's great. People are buying this. But, you know, like, let's look at the Mantle 52, just the PSA 8. There's only 35 eights. And that's, you know, hitting $1 million on Golden. But I think it's still, I mean, I'd much rather have a Mickey Mantle who has the records already than hoping that Trout goes, you know, he hasn't even been to a playoff game yet. So then hoping that he goes and wins World Series and all these different things. And there's so many different versions of his rookie. Whereas, you know, Mantle, the 52 Topps, there's nothing else to compare it to. So that's why I like vintage. You know, Jordan, you know, there's only one, the 1986 Fleer, that's his rookie. Whereas even LeBron, there's Topps Chrome, there's this, and there's this. And, you know, there's just so many different options. And I just think it makes investing in those older cards a lot easier. There's one rookie and you buy that rookie. But, you know, I think you should have a diversified portfolio. I think you should always buy the new stuff, especially if you're a fan. I don't really watch a lot of sports that much. I've got a lot of friends that play, and I'll try to pick up a game there. But I watched a lot as a kid, you know, so vintage makes a lot more sense for me. I was a super fan as a kid, and now I'm so damn busy with business that that's my hobby now.
Yeah, I agree, and it's great that people can come in and buy what they like, and that's one of the best parts about sports cards. So I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate the time. Let the audience know where they can find you.
On Instagram, I'm just Rob G. Super simple. Rob G is my Instagram. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks a lot, Adam. Really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks.